The clock read 1:47 a.m. when Mary Fletcher pressed her palm against the incubator glass. Inside, a tiny baby girl fought for every breath, her chest rising and falling in rapid, desperate movements. The NICU hummed with machines keeping fragile lives tethered to this world. Mary's colleagues had gone home hours ago, but she remained unable to tear herself away from this unwanted child whose mother had looked at her once and said, "I don't want it." They told Mary she was breaking every rule in the book. They were right. But as she watched this abandoned newborn struggle alone in the darkness, she made a decision that would cost her everything she'd worked for, and give her everything she'd lost. Because 7 years ago, Mary had held her own son in her arms for exactly 23 minutes before his heart stopped beating. She couldn't save Isaac, but she'd be damned if she let this baby die without knowing what it felt like to be loved. What Mary didn't know was that saving this child would require her to stand in a courtroom and confess her deepest pain to strangers, that she'd have to choose between her career and her heart, and that 18 months later, her body would do something doctors said was nearly impossible. If you're watching this story unfold, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more incredible true stories of hope and second chances. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Now let me take you back to where it all began, to the day Mary's world shattered into pieces so small, she thought they could never be put back together. 7 years before that fateful night in the NICU, Mary Fletcher stood in a hospital room at 34, her hand clasped in her husband Andrew's palm. They'd spent 9 months preparing, painting a nursery powder blue, washing tiny onesies, reading parenting books until the pages wore soft. Andrew, a hospital maintenance technician with gentle eyes, had assembled the crib 3 times because he wanted it perfect. They'd chosen the name Isaac together. "It means laughter," Andrew had said, his hand on Mary's belly. "Our son is going to fill this house with laughter." But at 38 weeks, everything went wrong. Mary's water broke during her shift at the pediatric ward. The contractions came fast and violent. The fetal monitor screamed its alarm. Doctors rushed in. Andrew's face went white. Isaac came into the world silent. No cry, no gasp, just terrible, crushing silence. Mary watched the medical team work on her son with detached precision. Chest compressions on a body so small it fit in 2 hands. A breathing tube forced down a throat the width of a drinking straw. 23 minutes of organized chaos while Mary lay frozen, watching her firstborn son die before he'd ever lived. They placed Isaac in her arms when it was over. He was still warm. His eyes had never opened. Andrew buried his face in Mary's shoulder and sobbed, but Mary's tears wouldn't come. She just stared at her son's perfect face, Andrew's nose, her chin, a stranger she'd never get to know. The nursery door stayed closed for 3 years. Their marriage became a ghost of itself. Silent dinners, separate sides of the bed, 2 people drowning in the same ocean, too exhausted to reach for each other. Mary returned to work because staying home meant staring at that closed door. Every baby she held was Isaac. Every mother she comforted was the mother she'd never be. 3 years after Isaac's death, Andrew finally spoke the words hovering between them. "Maybe we could try again." Mary's first panic attack hit so hard she thought she was dying. Her chest seized. The room spun. Andrew held her on the bathroom floor while she hyperventilated, convinced her heart was giving out. "I can't," she gasped. "Andrew, I can't go through that again." He nodded, kissed her forehead, and never brought it up again. The years crawled forward. Mary turned 40, then 41. Her fertility window was closing like a door she'd never had the courage to walk through. Sometimes late at night she'd let herself imagine it. A second chance, a living child, redemption. Then morning would come, and with it, the fear that kept her paralyzed. Until the Tuesday night, everything changed. Mary was deep into her shift when the call came through. Ambulance incoming. Overdose victim in active labor. The ER was chaos, patients overflowing into hallways. Mary grabbed her stethoscope and ran. The woman on the gurney was maybe 28, but looked 50. Rebecca Mortimer, according to the chart. Track marks decorated her arms. Her eyes rolled back as another contraction seized her body. She was 32 weeks pregnant, and the baby was coming whether anyone was ready or not. Dr. Marcus Whitfield, the NICU specialist, called for an emergency C-section. Mary assisted, her hands steady, even as her heart hammered. They cut Rebecca open and pulled out a baby girl no bigger than a bag of sugar. She came out blue and limp, withdrawing from whatever poison her mother had pumped into her bloodstream. Then Rebecca woke up on the operating table and spoke her first words as a mother. "I don't want it. Give it away." Mary's hands froze. The only sound was the baby's weak cry from across the room, a sound that said, "I'm here, I'm alive. Doesn't anybody want me?" The baby was transferred to the NICU, labeled Baby Do Number 4, because Rebecca refused to name her. Critical condition: 3 pounds, respiratory distress, tremors from drug withdrawal. Mary's shift ended at midnight, but she found herself walking to the NICU instead of the parking lot. The baby lay in an incubator under warming lights, alone except for the machines. Mary had seen hundreds of NICU babies, but something about this one reached inside her chest and squeezed. She looked so much like Isaac. Mary stood there until 3 in the morning, watching this unwanted child breathe. When she finally left, she knew she'd be back tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. For 2 weeks, Mary's life revolved around NICU visiting hours. She came before shifts, during breaks, after clocking out. She held the baby during kangaroo care, skin to skin. She sang "Hush, Little Baby," the same lullaby she'd sung to Isaac, and watched the baby's vitals stabilize. Mary named her Lily, after the flowers at Isaac's grave. Andrew noticed the change immediately. His wife had light in her eyes again. "Tell me about her," he said one night. Mary told him everything about Lily's seizures and feeding tube, about Rebecca Mortimer signing away parental rights without a second glance, about the social worker discussing foster placement. "What if she ends up in a bad home?" Mary's voice cracked. "What if nobody loves her?" Andrew set down his fork. "Mary, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I can't watch another baby die alone." Andrew was quiet. Then he knelt beside Mary's chair and took her hands. "Then we fight for her, whatever it takes." The next morning, Mary marched into social services and asked to speak with Sandra Yates, the caseworker assigned to Lily. Sandra was a tired-looking woman in her late 40s with eyes that had seen too much. "I want to foster Baby Doe Mortimer," Mary said. Sandra's pen stopped moving. "You're her nurse?" "I'm a pediatric nurse. She's in NICU, different department." "But you work at this hospital." "That's a conflict of interest, Mrs. Fletcher. We have protocols to prevent staff from becoming emotionally involved with patients. I'm already emotionally involved, and I'm offering this child a home with 2 stable parents, financial security, and a mother who's a trained pediatric nurse." Sandra studied Mary. "Why this baby?" Mary took a breath. "Because 7 years ago, I gave birth to a son who lived for 23 minutes. Because I've spent those years terrified to try again. Because when I saw Lily fighting for her life, alone and unwanted, something inside me woke up. I can't save every baby. I couldn't even save my own. But I can save her." The office went silent except for a ticking clock. Sandra's expression shifted, something softer emerging. "That's quite a story, but my job is to protect children." Sandra pulled out a form. "If you're serious, you'll need to complete a foster care application. Home study, background checks, financial review. It takes months, and you need to understand. If the hospital finds out, there will be consequences." "I understand. Because, Doctor, Helena Garrison will have you in her office within the hour." Mary made it halfway down the corridor before her pager went off. Dr. Garrison's office. Immediately. Dr. Helena Garrison had been head of pediatrics for 15 years, sharp as a scalpel, known for running her department with military precision. Mary sat across from her, uncertain if respect was about to get her fired. "I've heard a rumor about you applying to foster a patient," Dr. Garrison said. "Please tell me it's not true." "It's true." Dr. Garrison closed her eyes. "Mary, do you have any idea how many regulations you're violating? A nurse forming an attachment to an infant patient, then trying to take custody? That baby's mother abandoned her. Nobody else wants her. That's not the point. The point is professional ethics. You cannot be both her caregiver and her potential guardian. Mary's jaw set. Then reassign me. I'm pursuing this, Dr. Garrison, with or without the hospital's blessing. If you pursue this, you'll be removed from NICU access entirely. No visits, no check-ins, nothing. The words hit like a physical blow. Not see Lily, not hold her during seizures, not sing to her at night. But Mary thought about Lily in foster care, passed from home to home, another unwanted child in an overwhelmed system. She thought about Isaac, whom she couldn't save. Okay, reassign me, but I'm still fighting for her. Dr. Garrison was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. I had a daughter who died when she was 6. Leukemia, 20 years ago. She looked at Mary with sudden understanding. So I'm going to tell you what nobody told me. The rules aren't always right. Sometimes, love matters more. Mary's eyes widened. Officially, I have to remove you from NICU access per policy, but unofficially. Dr. Garrison pulled out a business card and wrote a number on the back. Call my wife. She's a family law attorney. She'll help you navigate the adoption process pro bono. And Mary, go get your daughter. But the battle was just beginning. Hospital administration launched an ethics investigation. Other nurses started whispering, some supportive, others scandalized. And through it all, Mary couldn't see Lily. 6 weeks of home visits and invasive questions while Lily remained in NICU, cared for by strangers. 6 weeks of Mary lying awake wondering if Lily was crying, if she thought Mary had abandoned her too. Andrew held Mary through her doubts. She's waiting for you, our daughter is waiting. Then came the court date. Judge Patricia Holloway's courtroom was wood-paneled and cold, the kind of place where lives got decided with the bang of a gavel. Mary and Andrew sat at one table, hands clasped. Sandra Yates presented the case, and Rebecca Mortimer was there too, court mandated. Rebecca looked worse than Mary remembered, thinner, hollowed out. Judge Holloway reviewed the file silently. Then she looked at Rebecca. Ms. Mortimer, do you understand that terminating your parental rights is permanent? Rebecca shrugged. I understand. I don't want the kid anyway. Never did. Mary flinched at the kid. Lily wasn't an it or a kid. She was a person, a fighter, a miracle. Judge Holloway turned to Mary and Andrew. You're requesting emergency foster placement with intent to adopt? Yes, Your Honor, Mary said, standing. I've read your application. I've also read the hospital's ethics complaint. You violated professional boundaries. Some might say that shows poor judgment. Mary's stomach dropped. Your Honor, may I speak? Judge Holloway nodded. 7 years ago, I gave birth to a son named Isaac. He was born not breathing. The medical team worked on him for 23 minutes while I watched. When they stopped and placed him in my arms, he was already gone. The courtroom went silent. I spent 7 years terrified to try again. Terrified that my body was broken, and any baby I carried would die like Isaac did. Then one night, they brought in a woman who'd overdosed during labor. They pulled out this tiny baby girl, and the first thing her mother said was, I don't want it. This baby came into the world unwanted, addicted, fighting for every breath. And Your Honor, I looked at her and saw Isaac. I saw my son who never got to live. I saw a little girl who deserved to be someone's first choice. Mary's hands shook. Andrew squeezed them tighter. I know I broke the rules. I know I got attached when I should have stayed professional. But that baby is alone. She's 3 months old and she's never been held by someone who loves her. She's fighting to survive, and nobody's fighting for her. I couldn't save Isaac, but maybe I can save her. Maybe that's why my heart broke, so it would have room for her. Tears poured down Mary's face. Andrew was crying too. Judge Holloway was quiet for a terrible moment. Mrs. Fletcher, how do I know this is about what's best for the child, and not about fixing what broke in you? Mary met the judge's eyes. Because grief doesn't make you love someone less, Your Honor. It makes you love them more carefully. Every diaper I change, every bottle I give, I'll know exactly how precious it is. That baby will never wonder if she's loved. She'll never doubt she matters. Because I'll spend every day making sure she knows. Andrew stood. Your Honor, my wife and I have been broken for 7 years. Then Mary met Lily, and I watched my wife come back to life. We have a home, stability, and more love than 2 people know what to do with. Give us a chance to be what Lily deserves. Dr. Whitfield spoke as a character witness. That child responds to Mrs. Fletcher differently than anyone else. Her vitals stabilize when Mary holds her. Babies know who loves them. That baby knows Mary. Father Tom Whitmore, the hospital chaplain, trembled with conviction. I've known the Fletchers since the worst day of their lives. I watched them bury their son. Some people are broken by tragedy. Others are refined by it. The Fletchers have been refined. Judge Holloway called a recess. 45 minutes, that felt like 45 years. When they returned, Judge Holloway looked at Mary. Mrs. Fletcher, what you did was highly irregular. Professional boundaries exist for good reasons. Mary's heart sank. However, my job is to determine what serves the child's best interests, and I believe that child's best interests are served by people who will fight for her, who will love her unconditionally, who will see her as a miracle instead of a mistake. I'm granting emergency foster placement to Mary and Andrew Fletcher, effective immediately. The courtroom erupted. Mary collapsed into Andrew's arms, sobbing. 3 hours later, Mary stood in the NICU for the first time in 6 weeks. Lily was 4 months old now, still small but stronger. The nurses had dressed her in a tiny pink outfit. Mary approached the incubator with shaking hands. Hey, Lily, remember me? Lily's eyes opened. She looked at Mary with a solemn gaze. Then, impossibly, she smiled, a real smile of recognition. Let's go home, baby girl. When they pulled into the driveway, Andrew turned off the engine. You ready? Mary stared at their house. The nursery. They'd avoided that room for 7 years. But tonight, it was time. Andrew carried Lily inside while Mary walked ahead, her hand trembling on the doorknob. She took a breath and pushed it open. The room was exactly as they'd left it, dusty but intact. The crib Andrew had assembled, the rocking chair, the mobile of stars and moons. Andrew stepped beside her. It's time, Mary. Isaac would want this. He would. He'd want his sister to have his room. They transformed the space over the next week. New paint, soft yellow instead of blue. But they kept the crib, the rocking chair, and the mobile. Some things were worth saving. Lily's first night home was chaos. She cried at midnight, at 2, at 4. Mary stumbled through feedings and diaper changes with desperate incompetence. It was perfect. The first year was a blur of milestones. Lily's first laugh, her first tooth. Christmas morning with Lily at 8 months old. Her first birthday party with Bethany Cross bringing a teddy bear cake. The adoption finalized when Lily was 14 months old. Judge Holloway signed the papers with a smile. Congratulations, Mrs. Fletcher. She's officially yours. She always was, Mary said. Life settled into rhythm. Mary returned to work in a different unit. Andrew bonded with Lily over peekaboo. They were a family, scarred but whole. Then came the morning Mary woke up nauseous. At first, she blamed a stomach flu. Then exhaustion set in, overwhelming fatigue that coffee couldn't touch. Her colleague Bethany noticed. You look terrible, Bethany said. You feeling okay? Just tired. Lily's going through sleep regression. Mary, when's your period due? Mary froze. She tried to remember. Came up blank. Oh my God, Bethany whispered. Could you be? No, that's not possible. I'm 42. I haven't conceived in 7 years. It's not possible. But her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. That afternoon, Mary locked herself in a hospital bathroom and took a pregnancy test with shaking hands. She'd done this dozens of times after Isaac, always hoping, always disappointed. This time, 2 lines appeared immediately. Bold. Unmistakable. Mary slid down the wall and stared at the test. After 7 years of nothing, after making peace with Lily being their only child. A knock on the door. Mary, you okay? Bethany's voice. Mary unlocked the door with numb fingers. Bethany looked at Mary's face, then at the test. Holy shit. I'm pregnant. Mary's voice sounded far away. This is good news, right? What if I lose this one too? What if my body's still broken? I can't go through that again. Bethany gripped Mary's shoulders. You're not the same person you were 7 years ago. You're stronger. You're Lily's mom now. You're not alone this time. Mary called Andrew from her car. Can you meet me? I need to talk. What's wrong? Immediate panic. Nothing's wrong, just come home. Andrew was in the driveway when she pulled up. Mary walked straight to him and held out the pregnancy test. He stared at it, then at her. We're having a baby? His voice cracked. I'm scared, Andrew. Andrew pulled her into his arms. Me too. But Mary, we're getting another miracle. Dr. Whitfield became Mary's OB, refusing to let anyone else manage her pregnancy. I'm invested in this family's happy ending. Every appointment was a test of nerves, every ultrasound, every heartbeat check. She held her breath through all of it, waiting for bad news that never came. The baby was healthy, strong heartbeat, good growth. At 20 weeks, they found out they were having a boy. Mary sat in the ultrasound room, watching her son move inside her. A son, another chance. They chose the name Daniel, a quiet nod to Judge Holloway. They didn't consider Isaac. This was a different child, a different story. Lily now, too, patted Mary's growing belly. Baby, she'd say. That's right, sweetheart. Baby brother. At 37 weeks, Mary went into labor. Andrew drove her to the hospital with white knuckles. It's different this time, Mary kept saying. It is different, Andrew promised. Daniel's coming home with us. Labor was fast and intense, 8 hours from first contraction to delivery. Then came the moment she'd been terrified of for 9 months. The final push, and then a cry. A real, living, furious cry that filled the delivery room. He's here, Dr. Whitfield said, voice thick with emotion. Mary, he's here and he's perfect. They placed Daniel on Mary's chest, warm and screaming. Mary looked down at her son and felt something inside her that had been broken for 7 years finally heal. Hi, baby, she whispered. Hi, Daniel. I'm your mama. I've been waiting for you. Daniel weighed 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Healthy, strong, perfect. 2 days later, Andrew brought Lily to meet her brother. She climbed onto Mary's bed and looked at the tiny bundle. Baby Daniel, Mary said. Your brother. Lily reached out and touched Daniel's hand. His tiny fist closed around her finger. Lily smiled. Mine, she declared. Mary laughed, exhausted and happy. Yeah, sweetie, ours. That night, after both kids were asleep, Mary stood in the nursery doorway and felt the weight of the last decade settle into something like peace. Isaac would always be her firstborn, the son she'd held for 23 minutes. That grief didn't disappear. It never would. But it had transformed into something softer, less sharp, more bearable. She'd lost one son, but she'd gained 2 children, one she'd chosen, one she'd carried. Both miracles, both hers. Mary thought about the night she'd stood in the NICU at 2:47 a.m., making a promise to an abandoned baby. She thought about breaking hospital rules and standing in a courtroom and opening her shattered heart one more time, even though it terrified her. If she hadn't taken that risk, Lily wouldn't be here. And if Mary hadn't healed enough to love again, Daniel wouldn't exist. Life had taken everything from her, then given it back, doubled. Andrew appeared in the doorway, Lily on his hip. You okay? Mary looked at her family, her husband who'd never stopped believing, her daughter who'd taught her to hope again, her son who was the miracle she'd stopped believing in. Yeah, she said softly. I'm more than okay. Inside the house, Daniel started crying. Mary went to him, her body sore but willing. She picked him up and settled into the rocking chair, the same chair where she'd sat with Lily, the same chair she'd bought for Isaac. As she nursed Daniel in the darkness, Lily stirred nearby. Mary reached out her free hand and rested it on Lily's back, feeling her breathe. 2 miracles. One she'd fought for. One she'd carried. Both perfect. Both hers. The story could have ended with grief, with a closed nursery door and a marriage that didn't survive and a woman too broken to risk loving again. But it didn't. It ended with hope. with rules broken for the right reasons. With a family built from loss and love and the stubborn refusal to let fear win, Mary Fletcher couldn't save her first son, but she refused to let an unwanted baby die alone, and in saving that baby, she saved herself. Some people call it coincidence, the timing of Lily's arrival, the impossible pregnancy that followed. But Mary knew better. She called it grace. Second chances wrapped in tiny fists and newborn cries. She'd never forget Isaac. She'd visit his grave every spring and plant white lilies telling him about his siblings. She'd carry that grief forever. But it no longer defined her. Mary was a mother, not despite her loss, but because of it. Her broken heart had made room for more love than she'd known was possible. And that, she thought, rocking her son while her daughter slept nearby, was its own kind of miracle. If you've made it to the end of Mary's story, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, hit that subscribe button for more incredible true stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear that broken things can become beautiful again. Do you believe in coincidence? I'd love to read your story.